Good afternoon, everybody. This is Francesco Abbruzzino with the FrancescoAbbruzzinoShow.com or show. Sorry, I was distracted taking care of some other work and I didn't catch the time. This is a worldwide transmission by the TVSN Minor production. The show is Monday through Friday from 3 to 5, with reruns from 24 to 7 at the same website, which is just putting in the Francesco Abbruzzino Show and putting .com after it. You can watch it live, you can watch previous interviews, all that good stuff on that site. Products on there. I'm now a reseller for Infowars.com, so you can go there, click on the link under the purchase products, and it'll go towards my reselling, which supports the operation here. Lots of news happening, land rights issues, lots of good things out there as usual. Going to start first, some house cleaning. Sponsorship, if you're interested in sponsoring, just go to that site. The rates are on there, and you can get more information on sponsorship. If you're new to the show, it's I think I got a new fans. I put something out where it says over 18,000 people on one of my shows just last week was viewed, so it's growing. If you're new, I do all the technical, all the research, and all the hosting, so it is truly a one-man operation. The objective is to try to educate you guys on different perspectives. I may not agree with what I'm putting out or what I'm communicating with the news story or what I'm putting on my Facebook pages, but I like to look at different things. And some of them, you may see me put out one thing that's to the left, another thing to the right, and wondering what the heck is Frank doing. It's because I'm trying to get the information on both sides of it. I do have a right leaning, but the objective is to educate, inspire you into taking action, and then going out there and changing your life, change to your local government, whatever you can do. The phone line is back up, 941-584-4874. I found a way to block people, so if they start calling and it's someone being an idiot, I can just click on it and block them out to avoid them from trying to sabotage the show like the three individuals were doing the other day. As usual, I like to start out with inspirational video. I've shown this video before, but this video has a different take on it, and I showed it at the end of my show, I think on Friday, but YouTube and all their loveliness censored me. They censored my whole show on Friday for some reason, and that is actually why I'm on a different account right now, because that show was censored and they won't let me go live on there anymore, which is, it's not, if you watch alternative media, it's not a rarity. So let's go ahead to watch this video again. It has some good meaning. You'll see, and we'll talk, if you want, a little bit about it afterwards.
So here I am, standing alone in the open. I'm here with a message, hoping to repair what's broken. Nature is struggling, humanity's not on track. We've got our heads in the sand and our pride intact. We seek fulfillment through wealth, but do we achieve it? We want prosperity through consumerism, but is it worth it? Have we actually found freedom, or have we lost it? Because all we do is follow a system and never really challenge it. Can you relate to that? Or is the world too blind to see? I'd always seek the truth, but care what my peers thought of me. I saw a different perspective and struggled by the hour. See, I knew ignorance was bliss, but knowledge could give me power. So now I call for humanity, not just for one nation. I'm opposing separation and standing up to segregation. Whether religious or atheist, in essence we're the same. Stereotypes are man-made, and it was man who created the game. But are we actually ready to accept this and wake up? Can we put our naivety on the line, or are we always going to collide? Are we ready to make a difference? Do we venture into the unknown, or do we stay in our comfort zones and keep on taking the easy ride? Because at sea, it's ships that are safest at shore. But no, that's not what ships were made for. So ask yourself this, why are you really here? You may find that deep, but my question really is sincere. For my generation, are we misled as a youth? Do we rub off our true purpose due to false, misleading truth? Are we prone to propaganda? Are we prone to wrong information? Are we taught to judge each other based on religion, sex, race, culture, class, nation? The list goes on. The moral of this poem may be hard to grasp. I know it's not something usually heard, and it's not your average task. but the point is to stop damaging what we cannot recreate. We shouldn't prioritize selfish desires and let them decide our fate. However, let me tell you, in no way am I perfect and in no way am I better than you. I mean, yeah, I wrote this message myself, but it applies to myself too. So it's time to start improving, and it's time to start speaking, because resources are lowering and poverty is increasing. We allow cities to get larger, buildings to get taller, but trees to get shorter and forests to get smaller. We're an ingenious species. We could easily change everything, but we're made to think different due to decades of conditioning. We conform to education to confirm our own security, yet it's a biased institution that makes wisdom hold obscurity. Is it actually correct? And does it actually judge intelligence? Or is it just listening to our elders and improving our obedience? A possession is an illusion of worth. Are we tricked in our thinking? Are we trying to buy wholeness and are we trying to buy meaning? Do they always give joy? Do they distract us from reality? Do they determine our identity and do they alter our morality? I mean, what are our goals? This really isn't a joke. Can happiness be superficial and our routine a hoax? Do we live for the wrong things whilst the right things choke? Is mainstream TV legit or can it dictate our attractions? Does it actually bring us together or does it separate us into factions? We categorize each other via a social hierarchy, but status is made by humans, so who really are we? Is ego destroying eco? Are the real problems disguised? Do we really know the truth or does our society feed us lies? Are we actually filling our voids and does money hold any true weight? Could we drop our precious comforts to renew our planet's state? It really is time to stop living our lives in shells, because doing nothing for others is the undoing of ourselves. We're all from the same source, so let's see it for what it's worth. We only have one home, and that home is planet Earth. So are our laws actually just, or can power avoid the prison? Are our governments really innocent, or are they flawed in their decisions? Do they actually care for all life, or only for their own health? Do their motives come from morals, or do they just want power and wealth? They try to justify a war on terror, but it's lasted for over a decade. It's caused 1 million deaths, so don't you think they've overstayed? Is patriotism necessary? Can't we see it's prejudicial? Have we forgotten our common grounds and have we forgotten what's artificial? I mean, am I truthfully British? Am I really European? Am I actually a Western person or am I just a human being? See, the media highlight the smallest of tragedies in first world countries, but fail to cover that over 90 million worldwide have died from hunger in 12 years. So where do our priorities lie? Britain, China, Russia, America, France, Syria, Iran, Israel, Jordan, Iraq. Whether Western or Middle East, everyone deserves peace. No more national wars, no more bodies deceased. Let's come together as one and keep humanity in one piece. So are we going to be responsible? Are we going to take a stand? Are we going to change our ways and play our cards on the other hand? I'm not saying I have all the answers and I'm not forcing any suggestions. I'm just saying it's about time we see things differently. It's about time we ask some questions. So what will you do? How much will you allow? This is my call for humanity to create a change. And the time to start is now.
Okay, sorry about that. I was trying to pull up an article on my phone and you started hearing the music playing from an advertisement. A lot of meaning in that. If you remember when I played it the first time, it was just the individual and he was out there basically stating his poem. This one interjected some pictures, some video into it to try to give you an understanding of the message he was trying to communicate there. Hold on a second. Okay, I can't get it. I was going to try to get where there's a drudge story out there basically touching on I was trying to get out there a drudge story out there where they touched on the Obama and how he's pushed through increases in your taxes on a regular basis. Actually, it's maybe better to save for tomorrow. I was going to do it today because I just paid my tax bill today, but since tomorrow is the tax day deadline, we'll go ahead and discuss it tomorrow. The Celebrating Queen. I did host that event this weekend. I did make a fool out of myself getting up there and singing. It was a fun event for a good cause, and I wouldn't mind doing that again, but it was late. I'm a guy that likes to go to bed early. I'm almost 48. I didn't like those late hours. Okay, so here we go. BLM, Bureau of Land Management. Basically, this is a case where they were in there trying to make it sound like Bundys were on this land illegally or grazing on the land illegally, even though they had grazing rights going back to the 1800s. The Alex Jones show, Infowars.com, started, Alex just had a whim and he's like, hey, you know what, let's see, everything that happens there happens with Harry Reid, so let's see what really is going on there, and let's see what type, if any, involvement Harry Reid had. So one of his guys that does a lot of the research went out there, let's see, Kit Daniels, I don't think it was Kit, but it may have been, went out and he found this information where Harry Reid, the Democratic senator, majority leader, was trying to negotiate a solar deal with the Chinese out there about 2 years ago. They even mentioned the need for the land, so let's go ahead and touch on that. So now it's evolving into this huge land grab by the powers of the likes of the corrupt Democratic Senator Harry Reid. Huge victory for the property rights as establishment handed crushing defeat, because what happened is this weekend, once that story got out about Harry Reid, they had David Knight went into the sheriff's office and shared that story with them there. Next thing you know, they were conferencing the BLM and Bureau of Land Management. And shortly after that, they said, forget it, we're backing off of this. Probably, if it is true or isn't true, Harry Reid did not want to be associated with something like that. But all the documentation they're pulling up basically shows that there was this land deal with a company that's ran by Harry Reid's oldest son. Harry Reid's fingerprints are all over it, and it was to seize the land and put out solar plants there under financing by the Chinese government. The federal government backed down and ended their siege against the Nevada cattle ranchers, Clive and Bundy, less than 24 hours after Infowars exposed the connection with the land grab that Harry Reid was involved in. It says the feds were using the Bureau of Land Management to bully and intimidate ranchers like Bundy, pushing them off their public land in order to pave the way for lucrative green energy projects, which was, in this case, backed by the communist Chinese government and linked to Harry Reid. The next thing you know, then in the morning, the sheriff, Douglas Gillespie, who was coincidentally just took a picture with Harry Reid not too long ago because he was the top sheriff in Nevada. So a lot of connections there. Announced that thousands of Bundy supporters that gathered at Bunkerville that the deal had been brokered and they were going to leave it alone. Well, then the people were saying, well, that's great, but we want the cattle back, because what happened is the federal government, the BLM, went in there and started seizing all the cattle. So they stood their ground, and eventually it was all resolved. It's a huge victory for land rights advocates, a big victory in fighting big government and their hidden agenda. In this case, there was an abuse, what's looking like potentially an abuse of power by one of the senators who was out there trying to make a land grab, which may explain why he's a multimillionaire now. The Bureau of Land Management, whose director, this is a beautiful too. The BLM's director is a former senior advisor to Harry Reid. So you got the BLM out there. You got Harry Reid's former senior advisor managing the BLM out there. You got Harry Reid's son, who 2 years ago in documents was saying that they need to get the Bundys along with 52 other ranchers off the land so that they could push through the solar deal with this Chinese finance company. You got Harry Reid's name mentioned in there. You're seeing corruption all over this, written all over it, folks. Again, the common folk like us getting pushed around so that people like Harry Reid can go out there and utilize the federal government to achieve his financial objectives. Let's see, it says the BLM document titled Cattle Trespass Impacts directly states that Bundy's cattle impacts the solar development, more specifically the construction of utility solar power generation facilities on public lands. Non-governmental organizations have expressed concern that the regional mitigation strategy for the Dry Lake Solar Energy Zone utilizes a gold boat as the location of the offsite. There's another report out there, the BLM report entitled Regional Mitigation Strategy for Dry Lake Solar Energy. BLM Technical Note 444 reveals that Bundy's land in question is within the Dry Lake Solar Energy Zone and surrounding area, which is part of the broad U.S. Department of Energy program for solar energy. Then they piece together the documents here. You know what? I got to do like Alex Jones, who's my mentor. The guy's he's just phenomenal out there and drawing attention to all these issues. But he takes the camera down in there, and that's why I need something like that with the dual camera. Back in 2012, the New American reported that Harry Reid's son, Rory Reid, was the chief representative for his Chinese energy firm planning to build a $5 million solar plant on public land in Laughlin, Nevada. Marcus Stern, who's a reporter with the Reuters, also reported that Senator Reid was heavily involved in the deal as well. What a surprise. His son is a lawyer with a prominent Las Vegas law firm out there. BLM's official reasoning for encircling the Bundy ranch and stealing their cattle and putting snipers out there in helicopters was to protect the endangered tortoise, which they have no problem running off there and killing to push forward their agenda on the solar. Reid is accused of using the new BLM chief as a puppet to control Nevada land, which Nevada already owns over 90% of the land. If you're on my Educate, Inspire, and Change Facebook page, I put up a map of the land that the government owns throughout the United States. And it's pretty minimal until you get out to the west, and there's some huge chunks. In Nevada, it's 90% of the land is owned by the government. But these cowboys like Bundy have grazing rights that go back years, and it's established in a court. They're theirs. They can do it. The other thing that's been absent on here is major media, which is normal. Unfortunately, before I started really getting into the alternative, I used to listen to major media, and I used to take what they said, and I said, okay, that's what's happening. A lot of people in the conspiracy or alternative news world say I wasn't awake, because sometimes I would take what they were saying and say, that's got to be it. It's the news. I got to believe that's what's happening. And then I started, getting into the alternative thing and researching it more, especially with this show. I do a lot of research, and you find that they're not always truthful. It may be that they're not, some of it may be that they're not truthful. It's just that they're not covering the truth. They're not covering all the facts that are out there. Like this cowboy guy, this Bundy rancher, they're making him look out to be like a villain, like he's stealing land, he's not paying taxes on stuff. Forget the fact that the government went in there, tore out all their water pipes and all that. So it really opened my eyes when I started doing more research and finding out that the major media really is disconnected. And I don't know if it's an issue of you take a 30-minute show at 6 o'clock if they don't have enough time to cover all the issues. I don't know if it's that, I think 5 companies own the majority of the major media operations out there. If their agenda is being pushed versus what's really happening out there. And you look at a lot of this news, BLM, major media, was not on this Bundy issue until like a day or two before it all erupted and the whole Harry Reid thing came out. Some of the major media, you had Alex Jones out there from the beginning, because I listened to him every day. He was out there from the beginning. And next thing you know, Fox News flies out there and says, this is our zone, we got this. And I don't know, somehow they work rights to coverage out there. Not sure how that goes. But it's like, are you kidding me, major media? You were absent then, you're absent now. And you see that a lot in our local politics, folks, where major media is not following all the stories. And again, I don't know if it's because they don't have the time, because it's one thing I did notice is I was on my local media. Everyone knows I run a local Venice scoop, Northport scoop, and Inglewood scoop, along with some other stuff. I was going to do Sarasota, but I'm like, you know what? There's so much news. If you look at my Venice scoop, which is there's a city of 20,000, then you got the outlying area, so maybe 50 to 70,000 people combined with Northport and everything. If you look at that, I have so many threads on there on a daily basis. It's amazing. And I can't imagine how much news I would be pushing out if I was to cover Sarasota County, the state or national. Even with this show, you know, I got 2 hours, and 2 hours is never enough. As you guys know, I always run out of time. And I miss a lot of stories. What I've tried to do is cover the stories that major media isn't on top of, or that major media is covering, yet they're covering from a perspective that may not be honest. A lot like the Ukraine thing. Major media dropped the ball in there. I was on here long before major media really started covering it, back when I started the show. And I was on here talking to everybody about how the Ukraine, how the tapes leaked out with Nuland, where she was on there talking about setting up a puppet government in the Ukraine, how they were talking about the $5 billion they used to finance the uprising. I was covering all that. And if people knew more of this, would they be so would they be ready to jump into the Ukraine and go to war with Russia? Which is basically what Obama's leading us down to. He's over there pushing for all these sanctions. Granted, they're not strong, they're a little weak, but he's really being more of a warmonger than he is somebody looking for something that will resolve this issue in the best interest of everyone involved. Then he keeps sitting there saying, Russia's doing this with Crimea, Russia's doing that. But there's no mention of how complicit we were going in there and sparking up this whole uprising. So it just drives me crazy. I do have some stuff from the land grab, and as usual, I wasn't paying attention to my video coverage that I have. This is on BLM saying that they're going to cease operations. I think it's a raw video of the sheriff. No, it's a
$1 billion program to make flying safer may not be working.
The TSA employs people whose job it is, of course, to be on the lookout for suspicious behavior.
That. That's another story. All right, not sure how that TSA one got up there. Okay, let's see if this is it. There we go.
With that being said, I believe a press release has already been put forth that the BLM is going to cease this operation.
That's the Sheriff Gillespie. As I said, it's a raw video. Lots of protesters, a lot of militia showed up there. Just your protesters wanting to defend the.
Gold Butte allotment will be reopened to the public.
Defend our rights out there.
And they will be removing their assets.
Immediately! Their assets.
What I would hope to sit down with you and talk about is how that is facilitated in a safe way. And you and I...
You know, it's amazing. The sheriff gets up there and he takes the pedestal and he looks like the superhero coming in to save the day. But this guy was absent during this whole crisis. He was absent. He was not doing anything. He was basically absent on the job. Probably, who knows, maybe because he's in Harry Reid's pocket if you look at the pictures of him getting his nice little picture with the guy. But now, once it's all resolved, he gets up there and comes across like he's the superhero that came in and saved the day. Now on the video on the Chinese perspective here. Hold on one second. Let's see. Here we go.
News: the Bureau of Land Management says its 200-man armed siege of the Clive and Bundy Ranch in Nevada is all about protecting an endangered tortoise. But a Natural News investigation has found that BLM is actually in the business of raking in millions of dollars by leasing Nevada lands to energy companies that engage in fracking operations. This document from the Nevada Bureau of Mines and Geology shows significant exploratory drilling being conducted in precisely the same area where the Bundy family has been running cattle since the 1870s. The Gold Butte area is indicated on the lower right corner of the document, see below, and it clearly shows numerous exploratory drilling operations have been conducted there. What's also clear is that oil has been found in nearby areas and possibly even within the Gold Butte area itself. It is, of course, customary for the U.S. government to bring armed soldiers to an oil dispute. Operation Iraqi Freedom for starters. Heavily armed snipers, helicopters, and militarized soldiers have never been invoked over tortoises. Anyone who thinks this siege is about reptiles is kidding themselves.
All right, and
here's the map showing.
This video was basically put out there prior to the discovery about Harry Reid and his involvement with the Chinese and the solar energy company. This was another concern where people, and it's still a legitimate concern out there, it's just that Harry Reid's overshadowed it, where the government or entities were trying to go out there and get the land so that they could do the oil. Because this is, I think, 600 acres of land, folks. Now, grant the Bundys would not have mineral rights. I don't believe. I think my studies showed that they wouldn't have mineral rights. But the issue is they start digging. I think the grazing rights come into play and a lot more issues out there. It's actually pretty complicated, and I learned a lot about rights that I didn't know about before, so it was interesting. And that's the one thing I love about this show, is that you can research the issues and educate yourself about a lot of it. Some of the stuff I just never knew about. The next is on the TSA, and it's going to be that video I started to pull up. But this is basically how the TSA is using behavioral studies to try and look for terrorists. And I put out something where they spent, God, what was it? I don't think it says it in this article. I don't remember seeing it. But basically the GAO came out and said, hey, look, you guys spent millions on this, and we found it is ineffective and it should be stopped. But no, the TSA says we're going to expand behavior screening programming, despite what the GAO says. They were urged, as I said, by the GAO to scale back or even eliminate its behavior screening program, in which the TSA officers will strike up a conversation with passengers and the airport employees as a means of discovering would-be terrorists. And it's funny that I read this, because I remember one time I was coming back. I think it was my last trip from Italy. I was coming back, and I got tattoos all over me, and it was weird because this TSA agent just started sparking up a conversation about all my ink. And I thought it was weird. I'm like, why the heck is she starting this conversation with me? And then it's been 2 years, I think, and I keep hearing about that from my sisters that I haven't been there in 2 years. And I read this story. They say that the GAO claimed that the TSA program was a waste of money. The TSA is an agency with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security with a specific task of ensuring the safety of the public. Apparently, the TSA is simply ignoring the GAO study and expanding their behavioral program at the Baltimore-Washington Thurgood Marshall Airport. You have a Democrat from Mississippi, Benny Thompson. He claims that the program is an intrusion into the privacy of the travelers and has no scientific evidence showing that it's efficient, and basically it's a waste of money. So let's go to that video right now, and this is the news coverage on it.
But today that program is under the microscope.
5 Eyewitness News reporter Katherine Johnson this morning on what the TSA is saying about that. Good morning.
Good morning, Brad and Megan. Some things that the TSA is trained to watch. Are passengers acting suspicious? Are they sweating, looking nervously around? And they're checking to see how those passengers respond to a few simple questions. It costs $200 million a year to train TSA agents on these skills, and nearly $1 billion has been spent so far. But this new report shows that money is being wasted on a training project that doesn't do any good. Congressional investigators have done 400 studies over 60 years and found that our ability to identify deceptive behavior, even under training, is the same or slightly better than chance. Critics say when we're talking about $200 million a year, it should be spent on proven methods.
For a program to have operated since 2007 without any real success, and for someone to try to continue it, is an absolute waste of taxpayers' money.
TSA officers call this new report misleading. However, they have admitted in the past that the analysis they do is inconsistent from airport to airport.
Okay, so there you have it. Actually, I was a little off. I said $1 million. It was actually 200, and you guys were on me the whole time as I was checking email. See, I listened to the story before, so I'm allowed to watch my phone and check email. I'm in the middle of taking care of an issue with my company that actually pays the bills, since this is a free operation and doesn't pay anything. But yeah, there you have it. It's $200 million and not just $1 million. See, I was listening. And it's been inconsistent. They have reviewed the findings. They don't agree with the GAO, but they say, oh yeah, but It has been inconsistent, but hey, we're going to move forward with it because it's not our money, it's the taxpayers' money. Makes a lot of sense to me. It sounds like normal bureaucratic bullcrap out there. What say you, folks? Now, the next thing is the lovely Eric Holder. And as you guys know, I've been critical of this guy. He's just a front. I don't know what this guy's doing in office, just like I don't know why Obama's still in office. But this guy is now pulling the race card. And I think I have the video of him crying about it at the Reverend Al Sharpton's thing. And you know what's funny, too, is I'll get it. Well, at the same thing, basically, Obama was out there decrying about voter fraud when he was at this same event, basically, I think, stating his concerns with voter fraud, yet the person that voted 6 times for Obama and went to jail for voter fraud as a staff member at one of the voting precincts was welcomed with warm arms from Sharpton, and then he goes to this event, which is was sponsored by Sharpton. Let's go ahead and take a listen to it, and then I'll play it. This time I'm going to put you guys really on the video. Yep, there we go. As I said, I run the technical end of it and the research and everything, so sometimes I drop the ball.
And as the president prepares to speak at the Civil Rights Summit in Austin, Attorney General Eric Holder is drawing attention for remarks he made before a civil rights group here in New York. At the annual convention of the National Action Network, headed by MSNBC's Reverend Al Sharpton, the Attorney General said he and President Obama get treated by Congress in a way their predecessors never would have.
I am pleased to note that the last 5 years have been defined by significant strides and by lasting reforms, even in the face of unprecedented, unwarranted.
I wanted to note, too, that he is reading, basically, from a teleprompter. So this was a prepared speech that he... Hold on one second. That he was getting out there to let people know that this charge of racism that he's implying out there. So let's pick it up. Also, I wanted to note, they did say separate meetings. I had it wrong. So Brock was at the Sharpton meeting where he was decrying the voter fraud that's occurring, that Republicans are pushing, at a same meeting that was being held by a guy that opened with welcome arms, a staffer that was convicted of voter fraud. And what President Obama is leading to as voter fraud is the fact that the Republicans want an ID when you go in to vote, which I don't see how that's going to lead to voter fraud. And actually, I think the poll was out saying 80% of the people want this. They want an ID out there to prevent voter fraud. And I forget the percentage of African Americans and Latinos, but that was high too. We're on board with it. So not sure. I almost think that he's using this voter fraud and the wage gap with women as a way to throw people off of a lot of his issues with Obamacare and many of the other issues that he's out there entangled in. So let's go ahead and listen to Eric Holder's charge of racism against him and the president.
Ugly and divisive adversity. If you don't believe that, you look at the way, and forget about me. You look at the way the Attorney General of the United States was treated yesterday by a House committee. Had nothing to do with me. Forget that. What Attorney General has ever had to deal with that kind of treatment?
Well, a few, so we're going to cover that in a second. Maybe he should have done his research.
Has ever had to deal with that kind of treatment?
Now, the Attorney General was referring to a testy exchange with Texas Republican Congressman Louis,
where he called the congressman Buddy. Listen here, Buddy.
I think what we promised to do is to provide you and your staff with...
Sir, I've read you what your department promised, and it is inadequate, and I realize that contempt is not a big deal to our Attorney General, but it is important that we have proper oversight. So,
you hold it there, buddy. You don't want to go there. Look at him.
You don't want to go there?
No.
About the contempt?
You should not assume that that is not a big deal to me.
All right, this guy's an idiot. He needs to get out of office. I tell you, you don't want to go there, buddy. But basically, the Obama administration continually plays that race card out there. They say that they don't want to, but they continually play it to their advantage whenever they can. If you oppose Obamacare, you're a racist. if you oppose Eric Holder not taking action on the IRS, you're a racist. Holder asked what Attorney General has had to deal with this kind of treatment with the Rep. Louie, a Texas Republican, who our lovely AG decided to call, "Look here, buddy," like they're out in the streets. I realize that contempt that we know all that. Holder accused Gohmert and the Republicans of picking on him due to the color of his skin. In fact, a large number of federal government bureaucrats, including the former AG Janet Reno, have weathered contempt charges from Congress in the past. Janet Reno was getting ripped, folks, by the Congress many a times, and she's an Attorney General. Since 1975, these have included a Secretary of State, Secretary of Commerce, a Secretary of Health, Education and Welfare, a couple Secretaries of Energy, Secretary of Interior, and the list goes on. In 1975, Nixon's former AG, John Mitchell, endured a far worse fate than Eric can ever imagine. He was sentenced to 2.5 years a prison stint where he passed away. He ended up passing away in there. So for the Attorney General to sit there and say, "Oh, they've never done this to any other Attorney General," give me a break. Now, back in 1975, I was only 9. I don't remember this guy, but it's obviously on record. The guy went to jail, contempt charges, all that stuff. That was during Watergate. And from what I've read, the charges were much less minor compared to what they're alleging with Holder. Janet Reno, I specifically remember her just being put through the mill, man, by the Republicans. So for him to say it's just happening to him is just totally inaccurate. And it's unfortunate that they're pulling the race card. Not unexpected, but unfortunate. CIA, it's coming out now that they've deceived the government on torture programs, according to the Senate report that's come out. It's a classified report that they've declassified portions of on the 911 interrogation program, found that they purposely, the CIA, deceived the U.S. Department of Justice on legal justification for the use of the torture techniques. I think one of the many issues that they came out and stated was that the CIA was saying, hey, these were so beneficial, we were doing the waterboarding, we were able to get all this information, but they found out that what was happening is they were getting the information prior to the waterboarding. The Senate found that the CIA used interrogation methods not approved by the U.S. Department of Justice. The CIA repeatedly provided inaccurate information to the Department of Justice, impeding a proper legal analysis by the CIA's detention and interrogation program. They found that the CIA distorted how many detainees it held at black site prisons throughout the world and how many were subjected to enhanced interrogation techniques. The CIA obviously is trying to minimize the damage, but again, folks, I think us as citizens, as residents, as people that aren't asleep, if you're watching my show, I'm assuming you're not asleep, and we're aware that there might have been issues there. A lot of times it cracks me up. All these politicians, these government agencies will sit there and say, they'll sit there and say, I'm not this, and they expect the public to believe them, which the majority of the public does believe them. I experienced this even at the local level. And I think I've said this before. I got a meeting after this show at 6 o'clock. I'm going to a meeting over growth, where the city council is going to discuss this new homes, the 4,000 new homes everywhere, and the growth, if Venice is on board. And I sent an email to the mayor. I said, look, you want to build hotels on our beaches. You want to, you've just approved 4,000 home building permits. You want to install a parking garage. You want a river walk along our waterway. To me, you're all about growth. And he came back and scolded me saying, how dare you say that I'm about growth? And it's like, what am I missing here? That sounds like growth to me. But, he's along that mentality that many of these government elected officials are, that if you say it's X, the people will buy it and believe it. You got to delve into it. You can't just look at the cover of a book and think you know what it's all about. Same with me. A lot of people have this perception of me. from my Vinescoop page, but I don't know if it's an accurate perception of me. If they see this newscast, and I assume some will, then some may come out and say I'm a total jerk. But is that what they're really seeing, just by judging the book? This is on Missouri Department of Transportation. Is a story I covered last week. It was on, the calling number is working, 941-584-4874 if you want to discuss that or any other concerns. Missouri Department of Transportation to use LRAD. I covered this and how they'll be shooting this warning message to drivers' windshields. I didn't have a story to go along with it last week, but I do now. And basically, they're going to be using decibels. I think it was 153, and the study came out and said anything over 130 could be hazardous to people's hearings. And then somebody brought up the concern over the people that are working them, the people that are living nearby, and the impacts it'll have. So let's go to this video real quick and take a listen to the LRAD. Oh, wait. Okay, yeah, right here. That's a big guy there, huh? All right, we can skip that commercial.
MoDOT is unveiling a new attention-grabbing way to get drivers to slow down. You want to plug your ears. It's called the LRAD. It's a long-range acoustic device that blares a loud siren, like you just heard, with a verbal warning to drivers about slowing their vehicles down. MoDOT has bought 2 of the devices to get drivers to slow down in work zones. The loud sound can penetrate even a well-insulated vehicle with the radio on, delivering an urgent message to those who have not moved out of a work zone lane to get over immediately.
And I brought up a concern. I don't know if they need this out there. Sorry, let me get this down. Call for humanity down. Okay. I don't know if that's something that's needed or if I would want it if I were a resident of Missouri. And I don't know if any of my listeners are from Missouri and are experiencing this. I'd love to hear from you. They revealed that they acquired 2 of these cannons this week, which they'll be using to target employees or drivers that are in the speed zones at a cost of $25,000 a piece. It puts out a decibel of 153, and they say that basically 130 is considered safe during some field tests that that were conducted. 130 decibels, yeah. So what say you, Missouri? Is that something you want here? I know in Florida, we use the thing that gets me to slow down is they put out a basic thing saying, hey, workers are out here. If you're caught speeding, you're going to pay double. That gets me to slow down. Maybe that would be something to try prior to trying to blow off your residents' eardrums. I don't know. Call me crazy. I don't know about that. All right, so this is on, I do this. I'm guilty of doing this, but I'm not guilty because it's legal. And what are you talking about, Frank? What's legal? The flashing of lights to speeders. A judge has come through and said in Oregon that it's free speech, freedom of speech, to sit there and flash your lights. This involves an individual that was pulled over, basically in Medford, Oregon. He was hauling a truckload of logs. When Chris Hill noticed a sheriff deputy behind him and he flashed his lights to warn the UPS driver coming the other way, which I do on a lot. People do it to me a lot. It's a common warning. You flash your lights, right? The deputy pulled over Hill on U.S. Highway 40 in White City and handed him a $260 ticket for improperly using his headlights, saying another deputy had seen the flashing lights from behind the UPS truck. Hill decided to fight the ticket, which was a good choice, and he fought it without an attorney. He represented himself. Joseph Carter was the judge. He determined that the law covering the use of high beams was valid, but was unconstitutional as it was applied by the deputy. My point is that the cop was his partner, did not know why I was flashing my lights, Hill said, and he could not tell for sure what I was doing. So basically, Hill researched it. He came up with a lot of case law, and the judge said, you're right. you're right. You have not violated anything. You can flash your lights. They don't know why you're flashing lights. I mean, they can assume it's to let the UPS driver know you're speeding, but they don't necessarily know that is accurate. You know what? I played this out of order, and I should have played this one next. This is an Alabama Democrat who made a $100,000 racially charged challenge, and this is on Glenn Beck, so this will take a second to pull up. So let's go ahead and get started. Basically, this guy, this Democrat from Alabama state rep, he's under fire for a racially charged challenge. Let's see if you guys are on the right screen. Sorry. Let's go here. We'll do this one. $100,000 challenge. During his legislative...
I did it. I did it. I did it.
They did it.
My husband loved it. Do it.
Unfortunately, I can't do it and silence this commercial.
Challenge. Give us a month.
The Blaze does this to me.
Skin and nails don't look and feel more beautiful.
It is the $100 challenge, though.
Your money back. Nature's Bounty
Hair, Skin, and Nails by Natural Beauty.
That nourishes from the inside. I did it, and I feel beautiful. Take the Nature's Bounty Hair, Skin, and Nails challenge.
Okay.
Go to Nature's
Quite the challenge there, huh?
For all the details.
All right, here we go, folks.
To bring that to the table. Thank you for doing it. Appreciate that. Now, last month, Alabama State Representative Alan Holmes made some controversial and racially charged statements. It could cost him $100,000 if he puts his money where his mouth was. During a legislative session discussion on abortion rights, which is everything to these guys for some reason. We know what reason it is. It's a lot of money involved. Holmes speculated that members of the GOP would be supportive of abortion. And how many times have you heard this ridiculous, asinine argument? GOP would be supportive of abortion if their daughters were impregnated by black men. No. Life is life. They don't seem to get that. They don't seem to get where we draw the line there at life.
Yeah, it's this interesting thing that our position actually has a lot more black children being born than your position. Our position, there are not only
tens of millions,
people, but more black people, more Asians, more Indians, more of everybody. Yeah. In fact, we'd like more of every race to be born.
Now, this guy's been in the state house of Alabama since 1974. He then offered to pay $100,000 in cash to anyone who could show him, quote, a bunch of whites, unquote, who have adopted black children in Alabama. Uh-oh!
Oh, no.
Spoke out a little too soon. So, somebody formed a group in Alabama called Faces of Families. And they put it up on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And they found 7,000 families in Alabama so far who have adopted black children.
Is that a bunch? Would you say is 7,000 a bunch?
That's the question now, isn't it? Is that a bunch of white families? Seems like it qualifies as a bunch to me. Mm-hmm. Is a bunch 50,000? Is a bunch? No, I meant a bunch was 100 million. That's a bunch.
That's more than the population of the state.
But that's a bunch.
That would be a bunch.
I didn't define bunch. Who are you to define bunch? You're a white guy. You can't define bunch. So, yeah, 7,000 and counting. And, of course, now he's saying, well, I never said that there were no black children in white families. No, what you said was that there weren't a bunch of whites who have adopted black children in Alabama. Now you've been proved wrong, and you don't want to pay up. These people they just have no integrity. They have no honesty. They're intellectually dishonest. They're liars.
Intellectually dishonest. And this goes along the lines of what I was just stating, folks, that politicians will say whatever they want, and they hope that the majority will believe them. And they do. This black representative, Democrat from Alabama, said, hey, I'll just go out there and tell them that whites will not adopt blacks and blah, 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 and everyone will believe me and we'll continue our racist agenda out there. Guess what? He was proven wrong. 7,000 babies were adopted, black babies, African Americans, by whites. And now he's saying, well, I didn't say that, and he's trying to get out of it. But they do this constantly. constantly where they're out there as politicians stating facts or what they say are facts when they're not facts, twisting the words or just outright lying. This guy obviously didn't research it, and I would have. You know what? If I'm sitting there and I'm an elected official, I'm going to research the issue before I go out there and lay claim to the issue. Just a little FYI from the Francesco Abbruzzino show out to you out there in Alabama. If anybody's listening, you need to get this guy out of your state office. Not sure what the heck they were thinking out there in Alabama. Next is EU is taking Russia seriously on their gas. They supply about 30% of the EU's gas. Ukraine, Russia does through the pipes in the Ukraine. The EU is taking them seriously, and rightfully so. When I was out in Italy and the Russians and the Ukrainians were disputing their contract, gas prices shot up significantly. Over here in the EU, I forget the percentage. I think I covered it on Friday. I think Bulgaria is like 90% reliant upon the Russians. I believe Germany was 30%. So they need to take it seriously. Merkel stressed that the price of natural gas should be negotiated. She also said that the EU commissioner states that he should talk to Russia's biggest gas producer Gazprom, and try to resolve this issue. This is all coming from a letter that Putin sent out to the 18 countries that are purchasing natural gas from him, and stating basically, hey, Ukraine's debt level's at a critical level. You guys went in there. You guys changed the government. You guys are the ones taking over everything, so go in there and pay this bill up. That's basically what Putin's saying. Before, when Putin was in there and they were a puppet state of Russia was financing everything, and they're not doing that now, which is going to add to a lot of the pain of the Russian citizens. And I've said this repeatedly. They're already seeing their gas prices go up. Russia was basically financing them because back then the IMF, the European Union, would not, because they were under control by Russia, and they wanted them to join this EU agreement, which brought on this whole uprising. But Russia is in there saying, look, guys, unless this $2.8 billion is paid, we're gonna cut off gas. And I think they're serious. I for one would not call Putin's bluff. That guy seems pretty sincere. When he comes out and says something, I pretty much buy into the fact that he's going to do it. He's a no bluff kind of guy. Japan. And this story comes out just after I just saw another story. I just posted it just before coming on the show, where, what was it? I think 2,000 gallons, I think, of radioactive water leaked within the Fukushima plant. I'm not sure which reactor. It was just breaking as I came on. But they've had a hard time trying to take the radioactive water, cleaning it and purifying it to get it back out into the waterways. But it spilled over, and as that story was breaking, I had this story, which came out on April 11th, and it was put out by RT, where the Japanese government has overturned its predecessor's energy plan with in regards to the country closing all of its nuclear plants by 2030. Has been forced. They say they can't close them now due to the spiraling energy cost. And I think the other driving force is that whole China, tensions with North Korea, a lot of uncertainty out there in the global unrest that's taking place. Asia's, everybody thinks global unrest, you think of the Middle East, but Asia's on the brink, folks. You got, like I said, the Japan, North Korea, South Korea conflict, the China-Japan conflict. You got India and Pakistan. They're still in a state of war. Now you got Iran and Pakistan, because Pakistan detained 5 soldiers from Iran, and they just blew something up. We'll cover in a second. So you have a lot of issues going on, folks, out there in Asia. I know I said Iran, Pakistan. That's like the borderline Middle Eastern there. So yeah, Japan's going to move forward. They said all 40 of Japan's reactors are currently offline. 59% of the Japanese are opposed to restarting the nuclear reactors, with only 12% having no or minimal concerns with starting them back up. The government's ordered energy companies to spend over $16 billion upgrading the facilities so that they're no longer seismically vulnerable to earthquakes and, I guess, tsunamis in the case of Fukushima. The introduction of nuclear may be too costly to solve the country's energy shortfall. Reuters is saying that it would make no economic sense to revive 2/3 of the country's plants under the current stringent operating criteria that they have out there. So we'll see what happens there. Now the story, a lot of stuff happening over there in the Ukraine. A lot of people are saying they're on the verge of civil war. As I was coming on air, there were some videos out there. I didn't put them on my site because they're pretty grotesque of the clashes between the pro-Russian people that have taken over the 3 different regions, offices, government entities out there, and some of the other parties. Now the nationalists want to get involved, so it's spiraling out of control. Let's see what we're going to do here, because a lot of stories were coming out as I was getting this. Let's do the standoff continues video, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about it. I think this is a press TV, so it's pretty quick. There's a real short videos.
The occupation of government buildings in eastern Ukraine continues while a deadline set by Kiev for protesters to end their demonstration is about to expire. The interim government in Ukraine has agreed to give more powers to the country's eastern regions, but the mainly Russian-speaking population there is demanding either independence or accession to Russia.
Eastern Ukraine governors and the interim Ukrainian Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk have agreed to decentralize powers to eastern regions of the country in an attempt to end a political standoff which is threatening to drive a wedge between the world powers.
I would like to state clearly that the central government is not only ready for dialogue with regions, but is ready to fulfill the lawful requirements and wishes of all of the citizens of our country. In the framework of the changed constitution, we will be able to satisfy specific requests of every single region.
However, these sentiments are not appeasing to pro-Russian protesters who continue to occupy a large government building here in Donetsk. They refuse to leave the building and are demanding a referendum to bring about sovereignty for Donetsk region. Some local politicians are also trying to organize and hold a referendum as soon as possible.
As a delegate, I have filed a claim to a parliamentary committee to discuss a bill about local referendums. The draft was submitted as early as 2011, and for now it has already passed a second reading.
Meanwhile, the anti-Ukrainian protest in Donetsk is growing larger by the hour.
We stand for Russia and the Russian language. We do not believe Ukrainian authorities. They have cheated us when they signed an agreement with Europe. One cannot believe Banderas.
There is considerable anticipation ahead of a meeting next week between Russia, the
and
US
you saw
and
the lady standing there with the anti-swastika picture image there. That's because a lot of the protesters in Donetsk are primarily Russian, ethnic Russians. They believe, as many do, that the nationalist, extreme right, extreme believers, they had Nazi symbols throughout their protest, that they're just real extreme and they're against them, which is why you saw that Russian protester there with the anti-neo-Nazi thing. The far right sector, which we were just talking about, party leader Dmitry Yarosh, I'll call him Dmitry, has called his supporters to mobilize. He's saying, hey, we got to get together, get ready to take decisive action to defend Ukraine's sovereignty. They're starting to get concerned that more cities are starting to rise up and say, either A, we don't want to be a part of you guys, we want to be our own separate entity, or we want a referendum to go with Russia. On online video, the right sector's Dmitry guy commanded all arms of the right sector to fully mobilize and get ready to take decisive steps to defend Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. On Monday, they had some radical activists representing the right sector attempt to storm the Kyiv Supreme Court building, demanding the adoption of lustration legislation, which implies the people connected to the former regime may not take any authority in the new government. A lot of people are concerned. A lot of people do believe that the new Ukrainian government is basically ran and operated by a bunch of these fundamentalists. Now, Russia on their half said, hey, look, Ukraine, we'll make this simple. If you guys want to come back in, you just got to follow these 4 conditions. Ukraine said, recognize Crimea's independence, reform the country's constitution, regulate the crisis in the eastern regions, and guarantee the rights of the Russian-speaking regions. And if Ukraine fulfills these 4 conditions, Russia will propose further additional steps to help them out financially and with their gas. It is necessary for Ukraine to conduct constitutional reforms, legitimate presidential elections versus the elections are, they didn't really go through elections. They basically, the protesters put this banker in charge. As I said from the leaked tapes, the United States put this banker in charge. Ukraine gas debt is 2.2. I said 2.8 earlier. It's 2.2 billion. And they basically want their money, and they said this is another option, or somebody has to pay up. The U.S. NATO regime change in Russia. A lot of people. This is from one of the analysts. A few analysts have said that the U.S. is instigating this, and this is obviously people that are outside the United States that are probably not friends of the European Union and the United States. This guy here says. Basically, that the U.S. and NATO clear aim is to surround Russia, to weaken Russia in the long run, and to bring about regime change in Russia, according to Richard Becker with ANSWER Coalition from San Francisco. The U.S. seeks regime change in Moscow because Russia, despite being much weaker than when it was part of the Soviet Union, still constitute a threat to the United States in its quest to seek global domination. Let's see. Also, we have they want to impose new sanctions. We'll go over to this video real quick, and then we'll talk through it. Where is it? Right here.
The United States has imposed sanctions on 7 Crimean individuals and a Crimea-based gas company over the crisis in Ukraine. The Treasury Department says the individuals and the company Neftegas are responsible for contributing to the current situation in Ukraine. The new Treasury sanctions target the former Vice Speaker of Ukraine's parliament, Sergei Sekov, who helped pave the way for the referendum on Crimea's independence, as well as 2 individuals who signed the deal with Moscow to rejoin Russia. Washington has frozen their assets. It has also forbidden Americans from having transactions with Chernomoro-Neftegas and the blacklisted.
These sanctions are largely ineffective, and Russia laughed it off when they were placed against them because they're like, look, the people they're placing against don't have assets in the United States. They could care less about these sanctions, and it was more of a meaning thing. Now the G7 says they're going to come in with some increased sanctions against against Russia. The United States has called. Whoops, let me see if I can get this up. All right. Okay, the United States.
A deepening dispute between the U.S. and Russia over the crisis in Ukraine. The U.S. Secretary of Treasury has threatened Moscow with more measures.
To be clear, there's nobody in the room, myself included, who wants to be in the position where additional sanctions are necessary. The purpose is to make it clear to Russia that they need to step back. But it was equally clear that if they don't, if they step forward, if they do things that are illegal, that violate the sovereignty of Ukraine, that there will be unity in the world in responding to that. That's the meeting I went to.
Liu made the remarks after talks with the finance ministers of the 7 industrial countries who were in Washington on the sidelines of International Monetary Fund meetings. He said the economic sanctions against Russia have caused real pressure on the Russian economy. Liu also said there was unity among leading economies on the need for more sanctions on Russia. But reports say division is growing among Western countries as to how to deal with the crisis. Moscow insists the sanctions.
Support's like she said, is growing on how to deal with the crisis, but you still have the major issue, and that's the EU, folks. The strongest country there, Germany, does not want sanctions because they have so much of their business tied into Russia, and it's so complex that they don't want to take action there, and that's how it is similarly with other countries. I know Italy. Right now, in southern Italy, I know this because talking to my sisters, and I watch Rai Uno out here. They're having a crisis with the trash, where people they don't have a waste site to carry it to, so they're trying to sign a deal, and they're hopeful for a deal with the Russians. And now, if you're doing sanctions, will that deal be in jeopardy? So you got little things like that, and that segues. Well, no, we're going to do one more thing about the power change over in Russia, and then we're going to segue over into Italy. As you guessed it, this is our global unrest section if you're new to the show.
Cities of Donetsk and Luhansk remain fragile. Pro-Russia protesters in these cities rejected Kiev's offer of amnesty in return for leaving government buildings that they had seized earlier. One positive outcome for them, the interim Prime Minister, Yatsenyuk, has told local leaders that he is committed to allowing the eastern regions to have more power. But will that be enough to stop accession aspirations to Russia like the Crimea one? Meanwhile, Russia has asked Ukraine to repay the old gas debt, and NATO has warned that its satellite images show Russia has amassed thousands of its troops along Ukraine's border. But Moscow says the images are fake and are related to August of 2013. Just some of the topics we're going to try to squeeze in this edition of the debate on Ukraine.
Pro-Russian protesters have dismissed the government's offer of greater powers to the volatile regions, as a 48-hour ultimatum by Kiev to lay down their arms has expired.
I would like to say clearly that the central government is not only ready for dialogue with regions, but is ready to fulfill lawful requirements and wishes of all of the citizens of our country. In the framework of the changed constitution, we will be able to satisfy a specific request of every single region.
Protest leaders in the city of Luhansk say they are forming a volunteer army with other eastern and southern cities, which are demanding a Crimea-like referendum. They've issued a 10-hour ultimatum to local leaders to decide about the referendum. Meanwhile, in Donetsk, at least 1,500 volunteers have joined the army of the self-proclaimed state called People's Republic of Donetsk. They're also forming their interim government before a referendum.
All right, and so a lot of people are like, hey, Frank, why do you spend so much time on the Ukraine? I mean, come on. That doesn't impact us, but it does. It impacts us significantly, especially with the hawkish approach that the Obama administration has taken in there. The fact that we're doing more regime change, which we shouldn't be involved in. The list goes on, which I've covered in previous shows, folks. So there is a reasoning behind it all. IMF is issuing a new warning over alarm. And it's strange because I was watching on Italy, and there was a show, I think it was on CNBC as I was doing my morning workout, and they were discussing about how with austerity, Italy's turned the corner. And I'm like, really? Because I hear a different story on the news and from my sisters. And then next thing you know, you have this where IMF is coming out issuing a warning. And you got rioting in the streets, which let me see if I could do a dual screen, because there's no, I think on this rioting one, it's just showing the rioting it's a little raw. Where's it right here? Riots in Roma. This is out by the RT. But I was talking to my sister, and they got this new prime minister in there, basically. A young guy, Renzi. Real young. I think he's the youngest one they've ever had. And he's in there saying that he's going to do... Here, let's watch
Breaking
this.
news this hour, some 80 people could have been injured in clashes in Rome, according to media reports. Violence has broken out during anti-austerity protests in the Italian capital, with demonstrators engaged in running street battles with the police. Well, as you can see in the most recent pictures here, demonstrators are pelting security forces with rocks, bottles and all heavy objects they can get their hands on. Police responded with pepper spray, tear gas. Eyewitnesses say some protesters were injured by their own firecrackers, which exploded in their hands. Thousands of people converge on Rome's streets, angry at soaring levels of unemployment and deep budget cuts. They passed through the centre of the city and also attacked the Ministry of Economy's building with eggs and bottles. Authorities...
And you guys, now that is Roma, right where all the tourists are, folks. And that's not even where most of the there's unemployment. Obviously, there's unemployment throughout Europe and especially in Italy, but it's even worse in the South area. They say that with the joblessness at over 42%, that's the highest level since 1977. Italy is facing mounting pressure from the EU to bring in more austerity, reinforce austerity. Folks, you got 42% unemployment. Do you think that it's going to get, the situation's going to calm down if you're bringing in more austerity? I think not. One thing that my sister did tell me about Renzi is he's promising that everybody without a job will get 600 euros a month. That's crazy. And my sister's like, where's the money going to come from? The government doesn't have this money. Where's it going to come from? And I said the same thing. 600 euros, folks, he's promising. And I'm like, well, you know what? I don't see the guy Renzi coming up with that. And she's like, neither do I. And then it's going to be like, well, what are the people going to do? Especially if they're telling them to crack down with more austerity here. They're saying Lagarde at the IMF recently said that Italy must urgently reform its labor market to creating more jobs, which isn't obvious for the young people 15 to 24. Almost a quarter of the young Europeans under 25 cannot find jobs. And that in Italy, well over 1/3 of the youth, 33% under 25, are jobless. And I've said it time and time again, folks, if you got these jobless youths that are without jobs at that age range, it's a perfect storm for riots, upheaval, instability in the government, and on and on. Now, this next video, if it ever comes up, is going to be on those exact IMF concerns. Let's see. Here we go.
Well, the International Monetary Fund is once again warning about the high level of youth unemployment in Italy. The IMF has warned that a reform of the country's rigid labor market is urgently needed. Press TV's correspondent in Italy, Max Civilli, has the story.
With youth joblessness at over 42%, the highest level ever recorded since 1977, Italy is facing mounting pressure from the EU and some highly influential financial institutions. Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, has recently warned that Italy must urgently reform its labor market with an eye to creating jobs for unemployed young people between ages 15 and 24. Lagarde has also said she's extremely worried that almost a quarter of young Europeans under 25 cannot find a job, and that in Italy, well over 1/3 of youths under 25 are jobless.
Penso che andare all'estero sia una...
I would go abroad to find work if I had the chance. There are not enough opportunities for the young people here.
Soaring youth unemployment in Italy leaves an increasing number of young Italians with no option but to migrate to countries with better economies and more jobs. The real question is if young Prime Minister Renzi will be able to fulfill the hopes of Italy's youth by giving them some good reasons to stay.
The Jobs Act that the government has proposed, that the Renzi government has proposed, is looking mildly at that area. But not only that, reducing the typology, the number of options in the actual contractual arrangement is a simplification of the entire system.
Guys, it's a lot more difficult than that, and as someone that monitors it, they're in for a long haul there, folks. And Renzi's got a huge job ahead of him. I think he's overpromised and he's going to underdeliver. And you're seeing similar stuff in protests. This one's in Greece. They were protesting German Chancellor's visit. You know, a lot of them say it's due to the economy. I have to think some was long-held resentment towards them, as you guys may or may not know. Back in World War II, Italy went in there. They couldn't really handle Greece, so then Germany came in and set up a home front there, basically. So there's a lot of animosity towards the Germans there. Over 7,000 police officers were stationed in the streets of the capital to keep rallies under control with surveillance. Greek economic reforms are paying off, they said. However, she warned that the country still has a long way to go. And, you know, Merkel and basically Germany, a lot of the Greeks, the Italians, the Spaniards, they blame her because Germany is the strongest economy there in the European Union. They're the ones that are pulling a lot of the strings. Back when they were doing the austerity with Greece, it was Germany and France were trying to dictate to everyone. And that's one issue I had is, you know, and I was telling my sister, how do Italians feel that the European Union, that the Germans, the French, are basically dictating how they're going to run their country, how they're going to run their financial system, how they're going to do everything, how they control their currency with the euro. And my sister is one, and many others that wish they would have never left the lira. They basically say ever since we went to the euro, times have been tough. They've been a lot harsher, and they don't like the fact that these foreign governments are in there dictating policy to the Italians. The other thing, too, is, you know, if you go to Calabria, southern Italy and Calabria, I remember when I lived there, you know, they put only 33% unemployment, but it was a lot higher there. All I remember is just seeing young guys, old guys, people everywhere during the day that were not working. They would just hang out, sit out at the local bar, and just hang out all day long. So I think the numbers aren't accurate, just like here in the United States. I think they're inaccurate. And it's not just there. Venezuela, do I have a picture of this? Yeah, Venezuela. They had more riots there again too, guys. And so this global unrest continues. And a lot of this global unrest is primarily driven by austerity or economic problems. Venezuela is driven by the war on currency.
Fresh clashes break out between Venezuelan troops and anti-government protesters in the capital, Caracas. National Guard troops fired tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse hundreds of demonstrators in the eastern part of the city. The protesters are angered by the ongoing talks between the opposition and the government of President Nicolas Maduro. The rally was organized by hardline opposition members who refused to take part in the talks. The dialogue has been held under the supervision of the foreign ministers of Brazil, Colombia, and Ecuador, as well as the Vatican's diplomatic envoy in Venezuela. Nearly 40 people have been killed and hundreds injured during violent protests in Venezuela so far.
All right, and guys, I just, you know what, it saddens me because I don't think there's any real solution, and it saddens me because I think we're not far off here, folks, especially if the dollar loses its reserve status. We're really going to be in for a tough road, and we could see the food lines that Venezuela is seeing. We could see the riots that Italy, Greece, Venezuela, Chile, numerous countries are seeing out there. So, you know, it's all pretty scary. And, you know, like I've said before, if we lose our reserve status, guess what, folks? We got to actually pay our bills. We can't continue to print the money. And then we're really going to be in a bind. UN, they must... Syria is coming out now. Syria has gained the upper hand against the militants, which are sponsored financially and along with other means by Saudi Arabia, by Israel, by the United States, by Turkey. And they're saying, hey, look, these guys are losing. We fought them back. They've killed significant amounts and they made a lot of headway. And now they're starting to say, now, United Nations, we need you to condemn the bombings in Homs and elsewhere where Turkey is dropping bombs on us, where Saudi Arabia is actively in there supporting these troops. We need some sanctions against these people. And now that they're getting the upper hand, they're starting to call for this stuff because because they're like, this is ridiculous. How all these governments are coming out against us, a legitimate government of Assad, and trying to overthrow us for their interest. Iran, over in Iran, they sent their one fleet. I think it was like one battleship, and now they've recalled them back for something else. They want them to do some other duty. Now they're sending the 30th fleet, which is 30th Fleet is comprised of a destroyer, a logistics vessel, and a helicopter out to the Atlantic Oceans. And that's along the lines of what I discussed last week, I think on the show that was censored by YouTube, is the Iran and Russia's trying to set up bases throughout the South America and show their presence here. And they're doing it primarily because the United States is pushing their presence out in their territorial waters and lands. North Korea, I think this was on that same censored show. Is, you know what's funny about the censorship? They censored, I think, the whole show. I normally see censors because they'll come up and say your show is censored in certain countries, and you can click on it and get information. But it's amazing, like certain information, if you cover it, and I don't know if it's the words that I speak or if it's part of the videos that I play, but certain parts of this newscast are censored. So it'll play the show and then get to a certain segment that they don't want filmed or shown in that country, and it'll censor it out. It's pretty amazing. North Korea, this is a concern. It's a report prepared by the Department of Homeland Security, said that Pyongyang could use a Yunha-3 rocket to attack the U.S. From its south over the South Pole. And basically they could blow up a nuclear bomb up in at a high level up in the atmosphere, and it would basically serve as an EMP and knock out a lot, if not all, of our electrical grid. And it says that the U.S. has tried to keep this report suppressed and releasing it from the American public as to not concern them. But it's got out somehow, and it just shows that they also said that they don't have any way to defend against it. There's no early warning radars or interceptors, according to the Pentagon, to stop this type of missile attack, which should be concerning for many Americans out there. I did notice, though, the other day that something that I've been harping on is after that attack last year on the electrical grid that took out the electrical grid in California, which the major media didn't cover, that they're now being asked to come up with a security plan to prevent any other attacks like that, especially since they mentioned that there's 9 grids that could be knocked down and basically take out all the electric in the United States. But you don't see stuff like that. You don't see stuff like this Korean thing on major media. And that's what I thought about getting the show out there, is communicating this kind of information out to the public. This should be concerning, that they can basically send a nuclear bomb off, ignite it over up in the atmosphere above the South Pole, and it would knock out our electric. What do you think about that, folks? That should be concerning to you. And if they can do it, what can some of these other world countries do? You know, you got to think about it. Israel, another global unrest. They're destroying aid projects in the West Bank to get ready for more settlements, and they did this after the talks with the Palestinians broke down. It's considered their E1 corridor, and contains a large area known as Jabal al-Baba, overlooking Jerusalem. It's been a target for the Netanyahu government since 2012. Benjamin Netanyahu is believed to have ordered the destruction after talks broke down and the Palestinians started expressing wishes to join 15 UN treaties out there. So the Israel took exception to that and started demolishing them. I already told you guys about the Venezuelan clashes. Also, Israel is preparing for a war with Lebanon in the Gaza. Gantz made the remarks in an interview with Israel media over the weekend. He said that the ground offensive in Lebanon is necessary. Who is Gantz, you might ask? He's the chief of staff of Israel's military. He's saying that a ground offensive in Lebanon may be necessary in a possible confrontation with the Lebanese resistance movement, which is known as Hezbollah. Israel has repeatedly attacked Lebanon over the past decade. About 12,000 people, mostly civilians, were killed in the Israel regime war of 2006. Another concern is just the amount of ammo and military equipment that's being purchased out in the Middle East. It said a recent study says that Saudi Arabia is one of the major purchasers, is one of the major instigators out there. The Stockholm International Peace Research Institute said that Saudi Arabia has spent $67 billion last year on arms, which indicates a 14% increase. The report came as Saudi regime has been involved in violence throughout the Middle East, supporting the Takfiri militants fighting in Syria, and backing the Bahraini regime. It's cracking on its crackdown against anti-regime protesters. The report also said that the overall military spending in the Middle East increased by 4%, up to $150 billion US dollars. China comes in second, increasing their spending on military 7.4%, and Russia increased theirs by 5%. So everybody's increasing their military spending, which is concerning to many. We're all done with global unrest because that's enough to make you all war weary. Oh my God. Okay. 941-584-4874 if you want to discuss that. Now we're going into Obama. Actually, it's his wife this time, and her war on junk food. I've covered on numerous shows the impact her war on the food the kids eat in public schools, how it's costing a lot of money, how there's a lot of kids that are not happy with it, a lot of school systems, for that matter, are not happy with it. And another top-down decree from President Obama and his USDA. They have used to regulate the powers officially ban all junk foods within the nation's schools. The USDA has banned all food it deems unsuitable for kids and bases the power to demand such things on the fact that schools receive federal money for their education. With the federal money comes federal strings. If you want the federal money, you get rid of the junk food. Schools, let's see, it says the FDA announced that it is allowing schools to hold bake sales still to raise funds without federal interference, but still insists that the new rules will help make healthy choices for easy choices for young Americans. The new rules require that vending machines operate outside. Vendors will only be allowed to put fruit and goods, healthy stuff in there, restrain the calorie count to 200. Kids across the country have been protesting the Spartan lunches required under First Lady Michelle Obama, increasingly ill-fated school lunch regulations, saying that lunches don't give kids enough energy to keep them going through the day. Well, I got to tell you guys, eating junk food's not going to give you energy. Take it from this health nut here. Complaints over Obama's school lunch requirements grew loud that the USDA itself agreed to loosen the rules. Now, Mike, I have a concern with a lot of the stuff she puts on the food menu. If you've seen it, it's just horrendous looking, and I don't want the federal government, I don't want Michelle Obama, in there dictating what my kids should and shouldn't eat, which is basically what they're trying to do. The federal government's trying to come in and dictate to us what my kids should eat. Let me make that decision, which is why I send my kid to school with a packed lunch every day. I don't want the federal government, Michelle Obama, dictating this to me. Now, I look at Michelle. She's not in the healthiest of shapes. You know, she looks like she could lose a few pounds herself. Now, in regard to junk food, I'm on board. You know what? I don't eat junk food. I used to eat a lot of junk food. You know, again, I don't think the federal government should be in there. So I don't like that end of it. On the other hand, I'd love to see maybe more education out to the students, out to the parents, where they talk about how junk food will not help you, will not give you the energy. These kids say I don't have more energy. It's not going to help you in that regard, but maybe more education instead of coming down, dictating that, hey, we need to take out these vending machines. You want to start being healthy, get the effing GMOs out of the food. The GMOs that President Obama is pushing on all of our food products, get that out of there instead of worrying about getting out the junk food. So that's my thoughts on that one. And then we'll just go from there over to my favorite subject, Obamacare. They're talking about we're going to talk about the new face of Obamacare, but this is the exit strategy, which is driving a lot of people crazy. And this is this guy Johnson, who's writing an editorial for Washington Times. He came in, he said he never wanted to be a pawn in President Obama's absurd and irresponsible attempt to mandate, regulate, and complicate the American healthcare system. Unfortunately, he has become one. If you like your healthcare plan, you can keep your healthcare plan. By the time my plan vanished, the only individual insurance plans available had been captured by the tentacles of Obamacare. And this is this guy Johnson talking in this editorial. He says he's 20 attempts over 4 days just to get in there to purchase on the website. The plan I found most similar to my cancel plan. He's one of the victims of the cancel plan, probably because he didn't have a pregnancy option for himself. Because guys have give birth all the time, right? Makes sense. The plan I found most similar to my cancel plan was nearly $1,000 more a year. The deductible increased from $2,000 to $5,000, so that's another $3,000 a year. And I was forced to pay almost twice as much for the a whole lot less insurance. So I got a whole lot less insurance, paying twice as much. Thanks, Obama. He signed up for Obamacare. It was a tremendous hassle. But even that experience was a joy compared to what I went through trying to cancel my Obama coverage. When I tried to terminate plan, I guess he got some other plan, so he thought, hey, I'm going to go in and cancel that Obamacare plan because it's, like he said, $1,000 more, plus $3,000 more on the deductible. When he tried to terminate my plan, the insurance company told me that the plans purchased through the marketplace could only be canceled through the marketplace. So he started a 3-day fiasco. After trying multiple times to sign on at healthcare.gov to terminate, only to find that the site was down and I wasn't allowed to log in. He gave up, so he tried calling, was put on hold for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. He was told finally that the only specialist could cancel a plan. So I was transferred to a pre-recorded message that came on every 10 minutes recommending that I call back after open enrollment. So he calls the next day to log in. He tried to log into Marketplace, tried a phone, and they said, listen, basically all I can do is help you sign up. That is all we're here to do. I can't help you cancel, and I don't know anybody that can help you to cancel your plans. So once they have you, they got you. Lovely Obama. Gotta love that guy. And now he's gotten rid of Sybilis, Kathleen and Sybilis. Now he's got this new person in here, this Sylvia Matthews. Let's hear a little bit about her and the transition from Kathleen and to this new healthcare director. Health and Human Services. Okay. Oh, it's Yahoo. I should have pulled it up a little bit later. This is Sylvia Matthews Burwell, is the new face of healthcare because she was dealt with the complexities of the federal budget and managed large health organizations. Lovely advertisement that I can't cancel. Yahoo and
after such a winter, reawaken yourself to sun-filled days. The Infinity Limited Engagement Spring Event.
All right, sorry about that commercial, folks. Let's see if we can get it now. We got to remember this with this Yahoo.
Joining us now from our reaction on the resignation is David Kentanese, senior politics reporter for U.S. News and World Report. So, David, based on Senator Lee's comments and others, it sounds like the confirmation hearings in a few weeks will be Obamacare on trial.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about that. Look, I don't actually think Kathleen Sebelius had to go now. If she was going to leave at any point, you'd think she would have been left in the fall when they had the rollout problems. I think she wanted to get across the finish line, got to the 7.5 million number, and said, you know, now I'm out of here. But of course, the Republicans are going to use these confirmation hearings. I think they're going to, you know, President Obama's going to get his next HHS secretary, but I think not without a lot of painstaking questions about how many people are actually paying the premiums of the sign-ups. What's next for Obamacare? And I think the Republicans are going to use it to relitigate a lot of the problems and to try to get more answers. So I don't think these are going to be easy confirmation hearings at all. But I think ultimately Ms. Burrow will be confirmed.
Well, some may say it's not just to relitigate it, but it's to ask the questions that are still outstanding. I mean, look, you got the warnings. Premiums are going to go up later on this fall. Not enough young people are signed up. There are problems with the employer plans. Hospitals not accepting Obamacare. And as you mentioned, questions over the actual number of uninsured who have signed up. Kaiser said, 27%? But we heard the president say most. The president today said in his remarks of the 7.5 million, most for the first time are now insured. I mean, is that even true?
Well, I mean, look, that's something Ms. Burwell is going to have to answer in her confirmation hearings, and I can't imagine that President Obama hasn't sat down with her and said, look, these are the answers that you're going to have to provide and in order to make this a lot smoother than what we went through with Sebelius. But look, Ms. Burwell does have a little better reputation on the Hill than I think Sebelius did. Her confirmation hearing for OMB went a lot smoother. You Senator John McCain, who came out last night with a tweet calling her an excellent choice, which I thought was quite striking to come right out of the box with that. Representative Paul Ryan has lauded her in the past.
But she can't change the facts. I'm sorry for interrupting. She can't change all the facts, although she does put a new face and an OMB management type style that's being praised.
Right, no question. And for Washington reporters and pundits, the face of Obamacare may have been Kathleen Sebelius, but for Americans, the face of Obamacare is going to remain President Obama. So I don't think, this is a personnel switch. I think, inside the Beltway is going to get a lot of traction. But you're right. When you talk about people and their premiums, whether they're going to be able to keep their doctor.
We've had enough. I'm sure you guys realize that was Fox News on Yahoo, so there is a slight slant to the right on that. Look, Burwell's in for a tough road. She's got a tough road ahead. She's got to get out there and continue to push Obama's mandate out there. What Obama did was politically savvy. What he did was said, okay, let's get rid of Sebelius, and now we can just look forward. We reached the 7.1 number. We get rid of her, all that old baggage. I don't have to hear anymore about all the negative things about Obamacare. We can just move forward, and hopefully we won't hit any more hiccups. The Republicans are going to obviously go out there and continue to push on the fact that there's all these issues, because they're going to, I tell you what, folks, the issues are going to continue to mount. Just like this editor that couldn't cancel his plan. There's going to be cancellations come November when the new period opens up. Then what's going to happen? So you're going to continue to have these issues as they move on. Now we're going to this next section, which is basically the biggest concern. I'm a supporter of officers that don't abuse their power, that are out there doing the right thing, acting professionally, and all that good stuff. I've said repeatedly on here that the main issue with these officers is the fact that they're not disciplined, that they're going out there, they're doing things that are unprofessional, they're doing things that are abusive, and they're not disciplined. So then that just encourages this continued action, this continued attitude within the ranks. And it's basically due to weak chiefs or captains, and that's the case with this next one, where this basically this captain said, Chief Craig Shelton says that he thinks his officer Johnson reacted appropriately, and he's not moving to reprimand him at all. So let's take a look at it. For some reason I can't remember if this is the raw video of her getting tackled, but basically this lady says that she was traumatized, that she was just walking down the street casually, and then she was chased down and tackled by this officer. Melissa Burnett says she couldn't tell whether the man that rode up beside her on a motorcycle last Friday morning during her routine walk was actually a cop or not.
Our top
Here we
story
go.
tonight is one you saw first on CBS 19. A White House woman says she was unfairly arrested for failing to stop for a police officer.
She says that the officer in question was acting suspicious and she felt threatened, but police say that she handled it the wrong way. CBS 19's Nina Harrelson brings us both sides of the story.
I really don't want to live in a town where something like this could happen to a law-abiding citizen.
Melissa Bonnett says she was on her usual morning walk when a man in uniform on a motorcycle pulled up next to her, asking if she lived in the area and if he could speak to her.
I thought that maybe he was flirting. I just thought it was odd. And so I wasn't really sure, but I felt uncomfortable because there wasn't anyone around.
She says she was worried he might not even be a real cop, so she refused to stop and began jogging away from him.
He just crept along beside me on his motorcycle, and he started saying, "Hey, ma'am, I want to talk to you. Hey, stop, ma'am, I want to talk to you." Then my anxiety, rose even higher.
The motorcycle has a patch on both sides of the gas tank. It's black and white. It says White House Police. Has red and blue lights on it. So you have to take it for what it is. Do you think he's a White House police officer? Why would you think he was somebody?
Well, why was he stopping a girl that's just out for a walk?
Says he got off his bike, chased her down, tackled her, and threw her in handcuffs.
He handcuffed. I just was crying, and I was saying, please, sir, why are you doing this? I mean, it was like I was in a nightmare. I mean, I hadn't done anything wrong.
Normally, if a police officer pulls up, in my opinion, it's awful odd for somebody just to take off and not want to speak to the police officer. And he had a lawful reason to be there and to stop her.
That reason, Shelton says, is that Bonnet was walking on the wrong side of the road.
By law, you have to be to the far left facing oncoming traffic.
So why was she handcuffed and put under arrest? Shelton says she was evading police.
He told her, I believe, twice to quit resisting, and she wouldn't. She continued to resist, and so he put her on the ground.
But Bonnet says she was unfairly treated like a criminal and wants the officer in question, Sean Johnson, to be fired.
Oh, I'm not going to be able to walk anymore. And that's sad because I enjoy walking every day, but I don't feel, I'm terrified. It was just so traumatic.
In White House, Nina Harrelson, KYTX, CBS 19
All right, so, I mean, there's numerous issues with this, folks, but hey, look. I mean, you see a person walk in, working out down the street. It's obvious she's out for a walk. She's out working out. She's not doing anything wrong. She's on the wrong side of the street. So that justifies tackling her. He says she was eluding me. She was worried about the guy. Not sure what he wanted. Was that the right approach? Was that the right level of professionalism? Was it right for the chief to sit there and say, oh, she's on the wrong side of the street. She wouldn't stop when we told her to. Just because you're an officer that tells you to stop, if you're not doing anything criminally wrong, you don't have to just stop and submit to them and do whatever they want. Okay? Then that's what I say to you, folks. Why? Because she's walking down the street thinking I'm not doing anything wrong. Little do I know that there's a rule against walking down the wrong side of the road. I mean, give me a break, folks. That's a little ridiculous. And this chief, I think, is absurd for supporting. You got to support your people, but you also have to draw a line and say, look, guys, maybe you were too aggressive. Maybe you could have been a little bit more professional. Did you have to tackle her, handcuff her down like that? Come on. You couldn't. If you know she wasn't stopping, she probably, the way she sounded, she probably had some hesitation look on her face. You couldn't tell that there was an issue, that she was concerned out there. So these cops, they need to be a bit more professional in handling how they're doing this. The next one is about a kid that's and I don't have a story to go along with this, so we're going to play the video. And it's about a kid that was choked, and it's going out there. They're calling it a disturbing video. Cops trying to choke a handcuff a teen. It surfaced on Facebook. He's not fighting, and you'll see it in a second. And it's got a lot of people concerned about the action that this individual took in this video. So let's watch it real quick.
Enough! I said what?
So here it is. You got this young kid. He's just sitting. I don't know what, we don't know what brought this on. And the kid could have been trying to fight him. He could have been trying to do numerous things. But the point is you got the guy handcuffed. He's on the ground. He doesn't look like he was fighting on the ground. At that point, the cop should be professional enough to stop. And what about the cop that's next to him, just sitting there acting like nothing's going on? I mean, look at that chokehold, folks. I got it up on my screen. I know you guys are on me right now, but I'm looking at it. He's got him in a chokehold, this tiny little teenager. Again, professionalism. When do you draw the line? Should this guy have stopped? What say you, folks? And that's where you got to come in. I just show you the material, and you have to make a decision. Are the cops getting out of control? This next one's just to lighten up the mood and bring some humor into it. It's something I posted on my page the other day, and my sister said, only in America. See, in Calabria, when the cops pull you over, they're nice, clean outfits, but they got a trained machine gun usually on me, with one guy, the other guy talking to me. But this is how they do it in this one. It may make you laugh. It may disappoint you that the cop did this. Let's take a quick look at it. Oh, they took it down on me. That's too bad, folks. Okay, they took the video down, but basically it was a officer, and he pulls over a guy, slams him up against the car, he's patting him down, he's telling him how to walk and talk, and he's like drunk, and the guy's like, you all right, you all right? And the guy's almost falling over. Finally, the individual jumps in his truck and takes off. It was actually pretty comical. I'm certain that any officer or captain would not applaud that. I was just more of lightening the mood. Now, we got this next one. It's a situation over in Dallas, which we've been talking about Albuquerque lately, and a lot of the concerns that we have with the police there, how they, I showed a video of them firing and killing a homeless guy, basically in the back, and sicking the dog on him. We talked about the protest over a lot of the Albuquerque actions out there, and after many of the people went home, the police started cracking down on the 100 or so that were still left over. This is on Dallas, so another Texas issue, with police insisting that filming cops is a major safety issue for civilians. The police officers, including the unions that rep them, are asking citizens organized to keep watch over cops with recording devices to stop filming them. They don't want the films out there. And why? And I've communicated numerous times where when you put the films into the officer cars or on their uniforms, that the amount of allegations against police abuse, or the amount of allegations against police abuse decreased significantly. Also, many officers should want them out there, because if they're doing the job they're supposed to be doing, the way they're supposed to be doing it, then it's going to help save them if a individual ever comes out and makes some kind of allegation against them. The calls for camera disarmament come after an incident 2 weeks ago that seems to have shaken the Dallas Police Department. It says that a woman with the local police accountability group, Cop Block, was following an officer in Dallas, recording him making stops on video camera. He was conducting traffic stops. The officer called for cover to further investigate. The woman refused information and gave leading answers. Dallas Police Association president said that this business of taping police officers is worrisome, as these citizens could be hurt. Why am I going to get hurt? I'm standing here on the road. I'm not involved. I'm not obstructing the arrest you're making, the stop you're making. I'm just in there with my camera. How am I going to hurt you? It's creating a major officer safety issue. Back in 2012, the Supreme Court did uphold that citizens have the right to record police officers performing their duties. So if an officer ever tries to tell you it's against the law to film them, no. The Supreme Court upheld it in 2012. Last year, a police officer shot. This builds on why a lot of the residents are concerned and doing this filming. Last year, Dallas police officer shot a 52-year-old mentally ill man. The incident was caught on video, which proved that the victim was not a threat to the officers. The officer was subsequently fired and may face first-degree felony charges. So bravo to the leaders of that department for getting rid of the individual. Now, a lot of people may question if the video never came up, what would have happened. In September 2012, an unarmed man was shot 41 times and killed by Dallas County Police amid a traffic chase. A police dog was then sent into the cab of the car to chew on him. The bystander had filmed the incident. The shooting officer was eventually indicted on manslaughter by a grand jury. Again, a lot of people ask what would have happened if the individual was not there with their camera to capture the incident. And once again, I'm running out of time. Common Core. This is on appearance protesting Common Core. So let's go to that film real quick. This is where I start skipping around, folks, and try to cover the stuff that I want to. It's on Yahoo. Okay, appearance protesting Common Core. I don't think I have a story. I think this is the straight up video. Yep. Yeah, this is a straight-up video. So.
Parents, students, teachers, and administrators rallied against a Common Core English exam. The protest comes after thousands of students sat out of the statewide test last week. CBS 2's Diane Macedo was there to hear why the exam is causing so much controversy.
We're not sure if the results will actually reflect what the children truly know.
That's just one of the reasons protesters outside PS 87 said they're furious, specifically over the 2014 Common Core English Language Arts exam. They say was riddled with ambiguous and secretive questions.
Parents are not allowed to see what's on the test. Teachers are not allowed to see the graded tests that their children complete. So we are asking for transparency.
Students had their own lists of complaints.
This year's test was extremely hard.
I was throwing up a lot.
This year, it's just too stressful.
The city school chancellor says she hopes to alleviate some of that stress by forbidding educators from using test scores as the only way to determine whether students advance to the next grade.
We're asking students and teachers to keep portfolios of their work and that they will be evaluated based on those portfolios.
But despite all the issues with this particular test, most of the people we spoke to actually said they're not against the high standards set by Common Core or by standardized testing in general.
We're not against testing or against the Common Core. We're against what our teachers say are wildly inappropriate tests.
New York State's education commissioners seemed to support Farina's plan, but also defended the testing yesterday.
New Common Core tests are a better reflection of the skills students need to succeed in college and careers.
The panel for education policy is set to vote on the proposed changes next month. On the Upper West Side, Diane Macedo.
What's disturbing is the person that was sitting there saying that Common Core is better and blah, 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 blah. They obviously haven't looked at it, and I've covered on this show numerous times where Common Core is basically just it's a joke with the friendlier math and all the other new formulas and processes. It's an affront, basically. Hold on one second. I was trying to do something. Okay. So next we're just going to go into this video. Check it out. It's just questions. What type of world we're living in? Is it a matrix? And this is from Joe Rogan and a NASA physicist about living in a matrix.
Malarkey that I've read and
Hold on one second.
online about the idea of the observer changing the results, that I felt like, why did everybody have to turn into voodoo?
All of the people who are trying to shill quantum mechanics as an explanation for thought or behavior or love or any of these woo-woo things, all of them are fucking physicists.
Okay, just avoid her language.
One, I'm a scientist, but today science is the religion of the West. It's the scientists who tell us what we should believe and what we shouldn't. It's the scientists that tell us what is true and what is false. So basically, they take the place of the priests of olden times. So that's one reason I write my book in terms of science. The second is that if you are going to have a major impact on society as far as helping them understand how reality works, what their point and purpose is in this life, and so on, then first you need to get the high priests of our culture to agree with you.
Who are we? We're an individuated unit of consciousness playing a total immersion virtual reality game wherein our avatars make choices and appear to have physical bodies and live in physical space.
Well, I think this simulation theory stuff that I know you guys probably talk about on the show a lot, and I endlessly think about.
Endlessly.
I definitely have been thinking lately more and more that is what the case is. Because just like ridiculous things like you saying the Pokemon thing the other day, Joe, the last podcast, that was creepy to me. Like, I can't stop thinking about that.
Yeah, why did I come up with Pokemon? And he had a Pokemon outfit that he just happened to have, and then he walks in the room with it on. It's just fake.
We never talked about Pokemon before me.
Never.
That was fucking weird. See, that's simulation shit.
What are we doing here? We're an individuated unit of consciousness with a mission to evolve the quality of our consciousness through interaction with the set and with others within this virtual reality. We're here to experience, interact, make choices.
This is definitely, well, our lives are very strange. Very, very strange. You know, Ari and I were talking about it last night. You know, we were talking about Ari's life now, how Ari's life has just transformed over the last 2 years. He went from being a guy who couldn't get booked anywhere to a guy that is living a dream. It's like all of a sudden the world changed and went from sucky to awesome.
Yeah.
And it's like he just reached some new level of the computer game, and now the entire world that he sees, his world literally is a different world. And now all of a sudden he's in this super happy world. Everywhere he goes, people are happy to see him. Yeah. He's super positive.
We're here to evolve, and as we evolve means, I can say it in several ways. It means spiritual growth. It means growing up. It means getting rid of fear, ego, belief, and expectation. It means lowering the entropy of your consciousness. That's what I mean by growing up, evolving. We are a unit of consciousness, and our job is to evolve the quality of that consciousness. Now, when you get rid of this fear and belief, what are you left with? What are you without that? Your love. That's what's left over when you get rid of the fear and the belief.
All right, so you may or may not know it. That's Alex Jones there. Joe Rogan is basically what show was he in? I can't remember the show he was in, but he's become huge in alternative media. Yeah, it was a little funny with the costumes there, but the seriousness is of: are you living in the Matrix? What's reality? What's what's real out there? Is it the man in the Pokemon suit or the man in the suit? Who knows what reality is? And it just delves into that. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is this is interesting. Now that we're looking into that type of stuff, is what is God? Who is God in our minds? And I think this guy, he does a good job of just basically touching on it. And I think everybody. I think it's the belief in a higher power that let me go ahead and do his. It's only a minute long.
Every plant worker went home safely because firefighters stopped an emergency from becoming a
Just listen to his words, his thoughts.
I believe that there is a God, but I don't like to put a label on it, such as Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, whatever. I believe God is a consciousness, energy, a spirit, something that flows that can't be seen. It's more of like an energy that flows through us all. I can't put a label to a God for an object or a thing or a human or him, her, male, female. God is unexplainable. It's incomprehensible for humans to even think about. Even if the Big Bang Theory is true, I do believe that somebody created the Big Bang. When you look around how complex everything is, our hands, our faces, our hearts, lungs, blood, veins, it's just insane. And even animals, we couldn't even create a single fly if we all tried, if we all came together in the world. Like, everything is so complex and so beautiful and so well designed. I believe everybody has a soul, and I do believe there is something after death. There is somewhere we go, or maybe our spirit transcends into a higher perspective of reality, into a different plane, a different existence. This is actually what Russell Brand said. This is where I get this idea from. But if you look around, you're not able to notice the energies, the frequencies that aren't comprehensible to our five senses. So how can we say there isn't a God? Maybe there is evidence through science that suggests there is a deity, but we are unable to comprehend it simply because we don't have the senses we need to comprehend it. We're on a physical plane right now. All of this is just what we can see and touch and feel and hear and taste with our five senses. They're so limited. Alright, so the camera's in a...
Alright, so that's basically it. And what he questions is, what is God? Do we need to label it that it's that God is God, that is Muhammad, or whatever your thoughts are, whatever your religion is it just a conscious? So good thoughts there. For some reason I enjoy listening to that individual and some of the stuff he spits out. All right, but that's it. If hopefully you had a good show. Hopefully we were able to educate you on some different viewpoints that maybe you can take with what your current viewpoint is, and inspire you to get out there and make some kind of change, be it in your life, with the government system, on how you do things. I would have loved to get into my food, my vaccines, my environment. God, there's so much stuff. I really need to go to 3 hours because I just do not have enough time to cover stuff like the U.S. Postal Service now logging all mail for law enforcement, surveillance grid of the future, bird flu, sounds alarm in Japan, some interesting stuff on vaccines, meat. meat, the average price of meat, and discussing the food issues. So I get so much stuff, and I never have enough time to put it out there. So I really need to look at going to 3 hours, which eventually I will once the show gets going a little bit better. And I can get some sponsors, which is the next thing. The FrancescoAbbruzzinoShow.com sponsors, because right now I'm doing it all for free. If I get sponsors, I can hire someone to help me with the job that actually, my company that actually makes money, and I can put more time into this program and evolving it. So that's it for the Francesco Abbruzzino Show. Everybody have a great day. I'm out there to fight the local fight with my local community leaders on the latest land grabs out there with Neil Holmes. That takes place in about an hour. So if you're here, you're listening, and you're from Venice, I'll see you there.